The sky tore open like paper as the alien ships arrived without warning. One moment the Earth's orbit was quiet. The next it was burning with falling debris and light. No one had time to ask why they came. No one had time to prepare. Sergeant Dax Varon stood among the ruins of the training base. His ears rang from the blasts. Blood covered one side of his helmet. He couldn't hear his squad anymore. The radio buzzed, but no voices answered. The ground shook under the weight of something massive approaching. He crouched behind a broken vehicle, gripping his rifle tight. His knuckles were white, his eyes locked on the edge of the smoke. And then she appeared. Not a monster, not a brute, but a tall, glowing figure in armor like liquid metal. She walked through the fire, untouched by it. Her skin was a deep blue, like twilight sky. Her eyes burned silver. She was beautiful, deadly, and unknown. She raised her hand. Dax fired without thinking. The shot hit her chest, but bounced off. She tilted her head and stepped closer. Then she spoke. Her voice echoed inside his head without sound. She asked him why he feared her. Before he could answer, another explosion ripped the ground between them. He fell backward, vision blurred. When he looked up, she was gone. But something inside him had changed. His fear had been replaced with confusion. That woman, that alien, had not come to kill. She could have, but she didn't. 2 hours passed. Dax regrouped with a few survivors. The squad was scattered. The war had begun, but no one understood why. Earth satellites were blind. Command was silent. Only pockets of resistance remained, scattered across burning cities. Later that night, a skirmish broke out near the ridge. Dax led his team through the wreckage of a broken colony outpost. The stars overhead were blocked by smoke. He moved like a ghost, stepping over shattered glass and burnt metal. Then he saw her again. This time she wasn't alone. She was surrounded by soldiers in dark red armor, larger than her. They aimed their weapons at her. She didn't fight back. Dax didn't know why he acted. He should have stayed hidden. But his body moved before his mind caught up. He shouted and opened fire. His bullet struck one soldier through the visor. The others turned, surprised. In the chaos, she moved like lightning. Her spear glowed red as it sliced through one attacker. But she was outnumbered. One blade pierced her side. Another slammed into her chest. Dax screamed and ran to her. He didn't know what he was doing. He just knew she didn't deserve to die. He reached her just as the enemies fell back. She was bleeding, gasping. The spear was still in her chest. It glowed red-hot. She looked at him and whispered a word he couldn't understand. Her fingers touched his face. Then she closed her eyes. He didn't think. He grabbed the spear and pulled. Pain exploded through his arm as if the weapon was alive. His chest burned. His skin cracked. But she breathed again, and he felt something leave her body and enter his. His vision dimmed. The ground swayed. He collapsed beside her, choking on air. And then everything went dark. Dax opened his eyes slowly. His breathing was heavy, and his armor felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The sky above him was still filled with smoke. Fires burned in the distance. The heat pressed down like a blanket. He wasn't sure how long he had been unconscious. Beside him, the alien girl was still alive. Her chest rose and fell slowly. The red spear, now black and cold, lay discarded near her feet. Dax's hand was burned where he had touched it, but strangely, the pain was fading. Something inside him had changed. He looked at her face. Her eyes were shut, and her skin had lost some of its glow. She looked peaceful but weak. Her armor was cracked open near the chest, but it still covered her completely. Even broken, it looked like it was built to protect more than just her body. It felt sacred. Dax heard a sound behind him. He turned quickly, gun raised. But it was only Corporal Miles, limping toward her with a rifle in one hand and a bleeding arm. He stared at the girl, then at Dax, unsure what he was seeing. "What the hell is she?" Miles asked. Dax didn't answer right away. He didn't know. She was a soldier, a warrior, an alien, but not an enemy. Not anymore. And whatever had happened when he pulled that spear out, it had bound something between them. "We need to move," Dax said finally. "She saved me, And I think I saved her too. Miles hesitated, then nodded. Together, they carried her away from the open ground and into a ruined building. The walls were cracked and covered in soot. The roof was gone, but it offered some cover. Dax placed her gently on a broken table. Miles stood watch while Dax checked her wounds. Her breathing was slow but steady. The light inside her chest, near the wound, was flickering, like something was trying to restart, but couldn't. Dax placed his hand near it. For a second, the glow returned brighter, and then it faded again. He sat beside her and tried to think. None of this made sense. Why had she been attacked by her own kind? Why had she looked at him like he mattered? And why did it feel like her pain was now his? His ribs ached, and every breath burned, but the wound wasn't even his. Miles called out suddenly. Enemy scouts were approaching. They couldn't stay here long. Dax lifted her carefully. She groaned but didn't wake. Her body was light, almost weightless in his arms. Like she was fading, they moved through the ruins, avoiding drone lights and patrols. Every step was slow and careful. Dax felt his strength leaving him with each mile. Miles kept asking if he was okay, but he just nodded. He had to stay standing. For her, they reached an underground storage bunker just before sunrise. It was dark and cold. Dax laid her down on an old mattress. Miles sealed the doors and set traps near the entrance. The war was still raging outside, but inside there was silence. Dax sat down, his back against the wall. He looked at her one more time. She looked like she was dreaming. Her lips moved softly. He leaned in and heard her whisper one word in her language. It sounded like exchange. Then the pain in his chest flared again. The bunker was cold and silent, except for the sound of Dax's breathing. He had fallen asleep for a while, but the sharp ache in his chest pulled him back to awareness. Every breath he took felt like fire. He looked over at her again. The alien girl was still unconscious, but something about her had changed. The glow beneath her skin was dimmer. Her body didn't move much, but when he touched her hand, he could feel warmth. She was alive. That was all that mattered. Dax didn't understand how their lives were connected now, but he knew the pain he felt came from her wound. Corporal Miles was outside the bunker, checking the perimeter. He hadn't said much since they arrived. Maybe he didn't trust her. Maybe he didn't trust Dax anymore either. Dax couldn't blame him. He wasn't the same soldier he had been before he pulled that spear. He stared at his hands. The veins under his skin looked darker, almost like something was spreading through his body. His skin was pale. His heartbeat had slowed, but he wasn't afraid. Not yet. Something in him whispered that this pain had meaning. She stirred suddenly. Her eyes fluttered open, silver and shining. She looked around, confused. When her eyes met his, she gasped and tried to sit up. Dax stopped her gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. She froze, then slowly relaxed. Her gaze stayed locked on his. "Why did you do it?" she asked softly. Her voice echoed in his mind again. She wasn't speaking his language, but he understood her. He couldn't explain how. Maybe it was part of the bond. Maybe it was something deeper. He thought for a moment, then answered without hesitation. "Because you didn't deserve to die." Her lips trembled. She looked down at her chest, touched the broken part of her armor, and then stared at his chest. Her eyes widened. She looked horrified. She whispered something he didn't catch, then repeated it louder. "You took the wound. You carry my pain. You should not have done that." Dax leaned back against the wall and gave a weak smile. "Too late now." She looked away. Her body trembled, as if some energy inside her was trying to restart. Dax saw the light under her skin pulse once, then flicker again. She reached out and placed her hand over his chest. He winced, but didn't stop her. "You are changing." The spear was a soul weapon. It connects life. Mine was meant to end. Yours was not. You have taken my place. Miles returned and froze in the doorway. His rifle was raised halfway, unsure of what he was seeing. The alien girl looked at him calmly, then back to Dax. She spoke again, slower this time, as if struggling to stay awake. "We are linked now. If I live, you suffer. If I die, you die too. There is no undoing it." Dax closed his eyes. He didn't need to understand the science. He felt the truth in every word. His body was no longer fully his own. Something ancient and powerful had tied them together in blood and energy. And now, every heartbeat counted. She leaned back, her strength fading. Her body rested in silence again, but her fingers remained gently touching his arm. Dax didn't pull away. He felt like letting go would make everything worse. The pain pulsed again, deeper this time. Outside, distant thunder rolled from orbital strikes, lighting the sky. Dax awoke to the sound of crackling static. The emergency radio had caught a signal. It was weak and broken, but a voice was coming through. Miles leaned over it, adjusting the frequency. The words were hard to make out, but they were from command. That meant someone out there was still fighting. They heard fragments of coordinates and the word evac. That was enough. Miles looked at Dax and gave a short nod. They had a new goal now. If they could get her to the evac point, maybe they could survive. Maybe she could live, and Dax wouldn't have to die. The alien girl sat upright on the mattress. Her color had returned slightly, but her strength was still low. She looked at Dax, then at the radio. Her silver eyes narrowed. "You cannot take me there," she said calmly. Dax didn't understand. "Why not?" he asked. She stood slowly, holding her side. "Your people will see me as a threat. I will be captured or killed. They will not listen, and they cannot help you. Only my kind can reverse what was done." Miles lowered his rifle, but didn't put it down. He stepped closer, confused. "Reverse what? What did he do exactly?" She turned to him. He accepted a soul burden. "It is a sacred act among my people, but he is not one of us. His body is breaking already. If nothing is done, he will die within days." Dax rubbed his chest. The pain was sharper now, like something inside him was splitting apart. He tried to hide it, but the girl noticed. She walked toward him and placed her hand over his heart again. A soft hum rose between them. The glow returned briefly, then dimmed. "There is one way," she whispered. Miles looked between them. "What is it?" he asked. She closed her eyes. "We must reach my people. There is a ritual, a joining. It can share the burden, but it must be done willingly, and it will bind us forever." Dax didn't speak right away. He looked at her, really looked. She was alien, yes, but there was something in her eyes he recognized. Pain, guilt, determination. She hadn't asked for any of this either. "I'll do it," he said. Miles sighed. "You're serious? You're going to risk everything on a chance." Dax stood up. "I'm already dying. If this is the only way, then I'll take it." The girl nodded. "Then we must leave now, before your body weakens further." They packed quickly. Supplies were low, and ammo even lower. Dax moved slower than before. Every few steps made him dizzy, but he kept going. She stayed close to him, guiding him gently. Miles watched their backs, eyes sharp for any movement. The landscape outside had changed. Ash covered everything. Burned trees stood like broken bones. The air was thick with dust. They moved through shadows, away from drone patrols and scanners. The alien girl moved with purpose, like she knew the land. After hours of walking, they reached the edge of a canyon. She pointed across. "My people are beyond that ridge. There's an old outpost. If it still stands, we can use the link." Dax looked across the canyon. It was deep, with sharp rocks and no clear path. His legs were shaking. He wasn't sure he could make it, but he nodded anyway. The sun dipped behind the smoke, casting everything in red light. The canyon stretched wide before them, sharp rocks lining the floor like broken blades. There was no bridge, no road, just narrow ledges and jagged stone. The wind howled through the gap like a warning, cold and cruel. Miles scanned the cliffs with his scope. "There's movement on the far ridge," he said. "Could be enemy scouts. If they spot us out here, we're done." The alien girl stepped forward and crouched by the edge. She pressed her hand to ground. A soft pulse of blue light spread out across the stone. She stood again and pointed. "There's a hidden path. It won't be easy, but we can cross if we move carefully." Dax wiped sweat from his forehead. His legs were weak, his breathing shallow. but he nodded. Every second mattered now. The pain in his chest had become constant. The bond was draining him faster than before. They began the descent. The path was barely wide enough for a foot at times. Miles went first, silent and watchful. The alien girl followed, her steps smooth despite her injuries. Dax moved last, gripping the rocks with trembling hands. Halfway down, a loose stone crumbled beneath Miles's boot. He slipped, nearly falling, but caught himself just in time. Dust rained down the cliffside. They froze in place, listening. No one spoke. The wind carried the sound away. When they reached the canyon floor, the air was heavy and dry. Broken machines and fallen armor lay scattered across the rocks. Old bones rested in the dust. A graveyard from a battle long forgotten. Dax stumbled and dropped to one knee. The alien girl rushed to him and held his arm. Her face was pale with worry. "You're fading too fast," she said. "We must hurry." Miles knelt beside them and handed Dax a water pack. "Drink. Stay awake. We're almost through this." With effort, Dax stood again. The girl stayed close, guiding his steps. Her fingers glowed faintly now, feeding warmth into his skin. Each touch gave him strength, even if only for a moment. They climbed the far side slowly. The hidden path was narrow and winding, hidden between stone ridges. Twice they had to stop and hide from passing drones above. Miles took out one with a silent shot when it flew too close. At last, they reached the ridge. A structure stood beyond it. An old alien tower, half collapsed but still humming with low energy. The girl's eyes lit up. It's still active. The link may still work. They pushed through the broken entrance. Inside, glowing panels lit the walls. Strange symbols moved across the glass. The girl moved with purpose, pressing her hand to a tall crystal column in the center. The room came alive with sound and light. Dax fell to his knees. His hand shook violently. His skin was growing paler by the minute. The light beneath his veins was pulsing, like something inside him was fighting to escape. The girl turned to him. "We begin now. The ritual must be done before your body fails. If you trust me, lie back and close your eyes." Dax obeyed without a word. She knelt beside him, both hands glowing bright. Energy flowed through the air, humming with strange force. Miles stood back, rifle in hand, watching everything with narrowed eyes. The light filled the tower like a rising star. The room pulsed with light as the ritual began. The air shimmered around them like heat rising from stone. Symbols appeared in the air, spinning slowly around the crystal column. The alien girl knelt at Dax's side, her hands glowing brighter than before. Dax's chest rose and fell with sharp, uneven breaths. The pain was stronger now. His hands were cold. His heartbeat was slowing, but he didn't resist. He looked up at her face and nodded once. She placed her hands gently on his chest. A surge of blue light passed from her into him. The ground beneath them trembled. The tower groaned as ancient systems reactivated. The ritual had started, and there was no turning back. Miles stood a few steps away, watching with wide eyes. He had seen strange tech before, but this was different. This was alive. It felt like the tower itself was breathing, watching, deciding. The girl closed her eyes and began to speak. Her voice echoed through the room, not loud but full of power. The words were not of earth. They moved through the air like wind, wrapping around the light. Dax's body lifted slightly from the ground. Lines of light traced across his skin. They followed the veins, then reached his heart. A pulse of energy hit him hard, and he gasped. His back arched. Then his body went still again. The girl's voice grew softer. Her body trembled as she poured more of her strength into him. She was giving something up, something deep. It wasn't just energy. It was memory, spirit, soul, a true exchange. Dax opened his eyes. They were glowing now, just like hers. For a moment, they stared at each other. In that moment, he saw her past. Her people, her battles, her honor. He saw her pain and her choice to fight alone. And she saw him too. The tower responded. The light grew stronger, filling every corner. The crystal at the center cracked slightly, then reformed. The energy swirled faster, tighter. Dax let out a cry, half in pain and half in relief. Something inside him shifted. The light around him dimmed slowly. His body floated back down. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the crystal. The girl leaned forward, her hands still glowing. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were calm. "It is done," she said. Dax blinked slowly. The pain in his chest was gone. His hands stopped shaking. He sat up slowly, feeling the warmth still inside him. He looked at her, confused but thankful. Something had changed, not just in his body, but in his very soul. Miles lowered his rifle. "Is he all right?" he asked. The girl nodded. "He will live now, but he is no longer just human. The link remains. Our lives are tied. What affects me affects him." Dax looked at his hands. They looked normal now, but deep inside he could feel her presence. A quiet echo, a heartbeat not his own. He was still himself, but he was not alone anymore. She stood and offered him her hand. He took it without hesitation. Their fingers locked with quiet understanding. No more words were needed. What had been done could not be undone. Outside, the world still burned. The sky outside the tower glowed red with fire. Smoke coiled through the air as if the world itself was crying. Dax stepped into the light, his armor scorched but his body steady. He breathed deep, no longer gasping for air. The link had changed him, but it had not broken him. The alien girl walked beside him. Her steps were slow, graceful, and quiet. Her skin shimmered again, the glow stronger than before. The ritual had restored her strength too, though her face showed the weight of what it cost. Miles followed close, rifle ready. "Where to now?" he asked. The girl pointed to the horizon. "My people will come. The beacon inside the tower is lit. They will sense it, but so will our enemies." Dax nodded. He looked up at the sky, where enemy ships still moved in dark formation. The war had not ended. They had only bought time, and they were still deep in enemy land. As they made their way through a narrow canyon, a sudden roar shook the earth. A strike cruiser flew low overhead, its engine screaming. Moments later, the rocks behind them exploded in flame. They had been spotted. "Run!" Miles shouted. They sprinted between jagged cliffs, fire and dust chasing them. The alien girl moved like a shadow, guiding them through hidden paths. Dax followed her closely, his muscles burning, but his mind focused. They reached a series of stone arches. The ground below trembled again. From the smoke, enemy soldiers emerged, tall, armored in crimson, their weapons glowing with dark energy. There were too many to fight. Dax raised his rifle. Miles took cover behind a rock. But the girl stepped forward, hands lifted. Her voice rang out in her native tongue. The soldiers paused, confused. Then they attacked anyway. The fight was fierce. Dax shot two down, but more came. Miles tossed a grenade and ducked. The explosion shook the arch above them. Rocks fell, crushing two attackers. Still, the rest advanced. The alien girl unleashed a wave of light from her hands. It struck the enemy with force, blinding them. But it drained her again. She dropped to one knee. Dax ran to shield her, firing wildly. He was struck in the shoulder, but the pain was shared. She winced at the same moment. Their connection was still active. Whatever hurt one, hurt both. Dax clenched his jaw and kept firing. Miles reloaded fast. "We need an exit. We can't win this 1 inch." The girl raised her hand again. A sharp beam of light shot into the sky. It was a signal, a call. Moments later, the clouds parted above them. A sleek alien ship descended in silence. From the ship, blue-armored warriors emerged, weapons ready. They fired on the enemy with precision. The red-armored troops fell back under the sudden assault. The rescue team surrounded Dax, Miles, and the girl. She collapsed into Dax's arms. Her breath was shallow, her strength fading again. He held her tightly, shouting for help. The blue-armored medics reached for her, scanning her body. One of them spoke quickly in her language. She looked up at Dax. Her voice was faint. "They can help now, but you must come with me. Our fates are bound." Dax didn't hesitate. He looked at Miles, who simply nodded. The ship's doors closed as they lifted off into the burning sky. The alien ship soared above the flames, cutting through clouds of smoke and ash. Inside, the lights were soft blue and the air clean. Dax sat beside her, still holding her hand. His shoulder throbbed where he had been hit, but it no longer mattered. Her breathing was steadier now. The other warriors had given her something to restore her strength. She looked up at him, weak but awake. "We made it," she whispered. He nodded. His chest still carried a dull ache, but the burning pain had faded. He could feel her life within him, steady and calm. The bond between them had changed, but it remained strong. Miles stood quietly near the doorway, watching the two of them. He said nothing. He had seen enough to know this was beyond orders and beyond war. This was something else now. As the ship entered orbit, the stars spread wide across the dark. A massive vessel appeared before them, a flagship of her people. Its design was elegant and ancient. Lights moved along its surface like flowing water. The ship docked gently. When the doors opened, more of her kind stood waiting. Their eyes locked on Dax, surprised to see a human step out beside one of their own. But none raised a weapon. The girl spoke to them in her language, and they listened. She led Dax through winding halls made of crystal and metal. The air felt alive. The walls hummed softly. He could feel the link between them growing clearer. Every thought she had echoed in him faintly. At the center of the ship was a chamber glowing with pure energy. The elders of her people stood in silence as she stepped forward. They placed their hands on her shoulders, then on Dax. Together, they performed the final rite. The energy surrounded him, washing over his skin. It didn't hurt. It felt like water, like light, like memory. Images flowed through his mind. Her childhood, her first battle, her shame, her honor, and the moment she met him. When the ritual ended, he was changed. He was still human, but no longer fully. His blood carried her fire. His thoughts carried her voice. He could feel her heartbeat beside his, even in silence. And he knew now that he could survive. One elder spoke to him in broken English. "You have shared her fate. You have earned our respect. You are one of us now." Dax looked at the girl. She smiled faintly, then reached for his hand again. "You gave everything for me. Now we live together. Always." He took her hand without hesitation. Time passed. The war on Earth slowed, and then ended. Her people had chosen to stand with the humans, not because of politics or treaties, but because one man had chosen to protect one of theirs. Dax never returned to his old life. He stayed among the stars, beside her. They fought side by side when needed. They healed each other when wounded. Their bond never faded. It grew stronger. Miles returned home with stories no one believed. But he remembered the look in Dax's eyes. He knew the truth. And in the vast quiet space, where two hearts had once nearly stopped, a new life began.